Okay, friends, here we go with the ribosomes. Ribosomes are the organelles. They are present in both prokaryotic as well as in the eukaryotic cells, since they are involved in protein synthesis. And you can guess, there is no function if there is no protein. There is no life if there is no protein. So it's like a fundamental stuff which should be present in all life forms. So it is present both in eukaryotic system and as well as in the prokaryotic system. So it is involved in the protein synthesis. They are complex. They are made up of proteins and RNA itself. Ribosomes, they are not membranous bounded structures, so that is why they are present both in the eukaryotic system and in the prokaryotic system. Typically, the ribosomes, they look like beads. These small dots are beads. They are present on the threads, which are called messenger RNA. It is like this. And if you can remember my earlier slide, which is about the transcription, the DNA creates a thread which is called as messenger RNA. And messenger RNA contains the message, the information from the DNA about what type of protein will be created out of it. And that protein is created on that system which is called as ribosomes. And creation of that protein is called as translation. So according to the message on this according to the message on this messenger RNA, the ribosomes install the building blocks of proteins according to the instructions present on that messenger RNA. So whatever the message, that particular type of protein will be created. And you know, all the proteins are made up of small units, and their small units are amino acids. The sequence of amino acids defines the nature of protein, and that sequence of amino acid is controlled by the message, and that message is originated from DNA. So the protein, its function, its structure is actually driven by the sequence present on the DNA, by the information present on the DNA. And that is why the genetic material, the DNA, is supposed to control the different activities of life. The next is the endoplasmic reticulum, is the system of folded membranes present within the cytoplasm. They are made up of proteins, lipids, and some other materials as well. And their job is to transport and delivery of different substances within the cells and outside the cells. And this is the place where proteins, lipids, and certain other molecules are also created. The endoplasmic reticulum, there are of two types. One of the type of endoplasmic reticulum is the one which are lined with ribosomes. And the job of the ribosome is to create proteins. So whatever the proteins are created on the ribosomes is actually delivered into the endoplasmic reticulum. That is why it was written that the proteins, lipids are all synthesized here. Actually, the proteins are synthesized in the ribosomes. And those ribosomes are present on the endoplasmic reticulum. And those endoplasmic reticulums are called as rough endoplasmic reticulum. And the endoplasmic reticulum without the ribosomes, they are called as smooth endoplasmic reticulum. They do carry the function. They can transport material from one place to another. And they're like extended network throughout the cells. And ribosomes may be associated. They are called as rough endoplasmic reticulum. And if there is no ribosomes, they are called as smooth endoplasmic reticulum. They're like channels, and they transport material from one part of the cells to the other part of the cells. And they are the channels made up of membranes. And whenever I said membrane, that means these are the lipid bilayer membrane. And you can see these small beads like structures present on these folded membranes. And these bead-like structures, they are the ribosomes. Let's move on to the next thing, and that is the mitochondria. The next organelle is called as the mitochondria. It's one of the most famous type of organelle present in the cell, and it is also famously known as the powerhouse of the cell, since it produces all the energy which is required for the function, for the execution of all the functions of the cells. It's once again a membranous bounded organelle, so that means it is only present within the eukaryotic cells. Since it's a membranous bounded structure, it is only present in the eukaryotic cells. Remember, no membranous bounded structure is present in the prokaryotic system, in the prokaryotic cells. So the mitochondria is a double membranous structure. There is an inner membrane and there is an outer membrane. And this is the place where energy is produced as a result of the chemical reaction in which the sugar molecules are broken down. They are broken down into simpler components and they produce energy. Whatever the energy produced by the mitochondria, that energy is produced in the form of ATP. This is called adenosine triphosphate. It's like a currency of energy within the cell. Wherever the energy is produced, it is produced in the form of this ATP. And wherever the energy is consumed within the cell, it will be consumed in the form of this ATP as well. So the ATP will be utilized whenever the energy is required to execute a chemical reaction or a function, and wherever the energy is produced, it will be produced in the form of ATP. It's a very universal molecule. It is present in bacteria, it is present in humans, it is present in almost every other form of life as well. And the mitochondria is famous for the one particular job to produce energy, that means to produce ATP. So mitochondria are of different sizes. In bacteria, the mitochondria has their own DNA and the ribosomes. Since the mitochondria is executing very important function, that is why it contains its own DNA as well as the ribosomes. Remember, the job of the ribosomes is to produce proteins, and the job of the DNA is to produce messenger RNA. Together, they produce the DNA produce messenger RNA, and ribosomes, using the information present on the messenger RNA, produces proteins. So since the mitochondria is executing very important function of producing energy, without mitochondria means no energy, means no life. So in order to keep the integrity of mitochondria alive, nature has given mitochondria with the DNA as well as with the ribosomes, so they can fulfill whatever the requirements, whatever the needs they may be having for the production of energy. Whatever the enzymes they want to synthesize, they can synthesize by themselves. So mitochondria can also divide themselves within the cells. So when the cells are dividing, the mitochondria are also dividing at the same time. It's a double membranous structure. The outer membrane is smooth. As you can see, the inner membrane is folded to increase its surface area. There is a fluid present within these folds, and that fluid contains all the things required to produce energy or required to produce ATP. That fluid is called as the matrix. And this is like a fundamental stuff present in all life forms. The next is another organ is organelle. The name is chloroplast. Remember, the chloroplast is somehow, it looks similar to the mitochondria, but it is doing exactly the opposite function other than the mitochondria. The chloroplasts are present only in the plant cells. They are not present in the animal cells. And that is the difference, one of the difference between the animal and the plant cells. They are present only in plants, in some algae, and in some bacteria. It's not present in the animals. It's usually green in color because of the presence of a pigment, and that pigment is called as chlorophyll. Remember, the plants looks like green because the plant cells contains the chloroplast. Chloroplast is the name of that organelle, which contains a green color material called chlorophyll. The chlorophyll has the potential to absorb light and to execute a very famous chemical reaction. And those chemical reactions are called as photosynthesis. So plants can make their own food by obtaining energy from the sunlight. The energy from the sunlight is captured by the chlorophyll, and together they combine water molecule absorbed from the roots, carbon dioxide gas received from the air from the carbon dioxide gas, the carbon dioxide gas from the air, the water from the roots merge together within the chloroplast with the help of chlorophyll to produce the sugar, to produce carbohydrates for the purpose of energy. So plants are not dependent for their food on other organisms. They can make their own food with the help of this process, which is called as photosynthesis. Photo means light, synthesis means creation, the creation of food with the help of light. And that chemical reaction occurs within the chloroplast with the help of that green color material called chlorophyll. So since the plants can produce their own light, so that is why it is called as autotroph or autotrophic organisms. The autotrophic organisms are the one which can create their own food, while the heterotrophic organisms are the ones which are dependent on other organisms for their food. So this is the structure of a chloroplast. It is also made up of folded membranes. The outer membrane is smooth. The inner membrane is folded into different structures. It is filled with a green color material called the chlorophyll. And chlorophyll is a special structure, special material which can absorb the energy present in the sunlight and then use that energy to convert water and carbon dioxide gas into sugar, and then that sugar is stored within the leaves and within the other parts of the plant cells, and then it is used not only by those plants, but it is consumed by the other organisms as well. And this is the only phenomena on the planet Earth from where the energy from the sunlight is captured. But nowadays solar cells can also do the same thing. They can absorb energy from the sunlight, but plants consumes the energy from the sunlight, and then that energy is transferred to all other organisms, including other animals and plants as well. The next structure is the Golgi complex. Golgi complex are the stacks of membranes. Their job is the packaging and distribution of proteins. So once the proteins are created, the materials are created like lipids and proteins and other bulky molecules. And if they are supposed to deliver within the cell or outside the cell, they are packed. If the proteins are created within the endoplasmic reticulum, so then it is processed by the Golgi, means the Golgi complex, and they are produced, and they produce little sacs, and those sacs then exported outside the cell. So the final material then leaves the Golgi. It enclosed in the small membranes, and then those membranes can be pinched off from the cells, carrying whatever the material packed inside those little sacs. Okay, and those little vesicles and sacs, the cargo molecules, they can go to other locations outside the cells. They can enter into the blood to go further places, and that is how the Golgi complex actually stored and then packaged the material. Okay, once again, let me just conclude the Golgi complex with one more sentence that sometimes a chemical compound or proteins or lipids are created within the cells, but they are not required in that particular cells. They might be required at some other place within the organism. So there is a need to transport such materials from one part of the body to the other part of the body. So in order to protect them or in order to keep them safe, they are packed in those small little vesicles and sacs, and then they are transported outside the cells to go for their target places. The other thing, the next organelle is called as lysosomes and the vacuoles. And lysosomes are the small vesicles present within the cells. They're involved in cellular digestions. They contains hydrolytic digestive enzymes, and their job is to degrade foreign material for damage, so that they can consume the foreign materials or they extract and digest the foreign particles and materials, and then get rid of the waste as well. And then the lysosomes are different sizes and different shapes, and cells can engulf external materials along with the food, and they create vacuoles called food vacuoles, which are fused with the lysosomes later on, and then they pour the lysosomes pour their contents within the food vacuoles to digest them. So let me help you this thing in a more easier way using my writing. Okay, let me explain you about the lysosomes and vacuoles using my writing skills. Okay, so remember, lysosomes and vacuoles, their job is to, like, the job of the lysosome is to protect the cells. That's the first job, and also to digest the food material coming into the cells from outside. The lysosomes are of different sizes, in different numbers. It depends on the nature of the cells that how many lysosomes are required. The vacuole, on the other hand, they are small vacuoles, they are big vacuoles. Usually the plant cells, they contains a big vacuole, and there's a nucleus, and then there is a big vacuole. While in case of animal cells, there exist the small vacuoles. Vacuoles are usually contains water, and depending on the nature and requirement and need for the cells. While in animal cell, there exists a small vacuoles out there. Let's go to the lysosome. The job of the lysosome is to digest materials within the cell. The lysosomes contains enzymes, particularly the hydrolytic enzymes. These are the enzymes which can break down the food particles into smaller components. Whenever, very important, a food particle touches the cell membrane outer surface, whenever a food particle touches the cell membrane's outer surface, the cell membrane moves inward and then engulf that food particle in a small, and creating a small chamber which is called as food vacuole. Since it contains food, so it is called as food vacuole. This process is called as endocytosis. This is called as endocytosis. So once that process occurs, a food vacuole is created. The lysosomes moves, fuse themselves with that food vacuole, and releases all the enzymes present in them within that food vacuole. Those enzymes destroy the food present within that food vacuole into simpler components. This food is then absorbed by the cytoplasm, and whatever the undigested food present in that food vacuole is then expelled out of the cell. Okay, that process of expulsion is called as exocytosis. It is exactly reverse than the endocytosis. First, it touches the cell membrane. So this is a waste product, and then the cell membrane open up and give way out to these waste products to go outside the cell. And this process is called as exocytosis. It is exactly opposite to the endocytosis process. So this is the job of lysosome and vacuole in digesting different food particles coming outside from the cells. Okay, so let me take you back to the once again to the slides. After the lysosomes, we will be studying about summary of everything. Okay, so in this lecture, we have studied about the nucleus, which contains genetic material or the DNA, and it controls all the function of the cells by producing messenger RNA and then the proteins. We studied the chloroplast, which is present only in the plant cells. It can green in color because of the chlorophyll, and the job of the chlorophyll to absorb the sunlight and then combines water with carbon dioxide gas to produce sugar and carbohydrates. And that sugar and carbohydrates is later on used by the plants to produce energy and by the rest of the organisms as well. The ribosomes, their job is to produce proteins, and it is present in prokaryotic cells as well as in the eukaryotic cells. Golgi complex, its job is for the transportation of material, and ribosomes are also associated with the Golgi complex. The job of the Golgi complex is to pack the lipids and the proteins, and it packs everything whatever is required to be transported outside the cell. And the endoplasmic reticulum, it is involved in the synthesis and transportation of proteins and other material. And there are two types of endoplasmic reticulum: the smooth endoplasmic reticulum and the rough endoplasmic reticulum. And the vacuoles, there are small vacuoles present in the animal cells, but the large vacuoles are present within the plant cells. The vacuoles contain water, extra water for the storage purposes. The mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cells, it produces energy in the form of ATP. And the lysosomes, the job is to digest the food and to expel and convert them into simpler components, and also it involved in the protection of the cells from the external things. So that's it for the cellular structures and organelles. I hope this thing helps you to understand the cells and about the organelles structure and function as well. So remember, if you understand the function of the cells, you can figure out the function of the organisms as well. So that's it for this lecture from my side. See you for another lecture after that. Okay, bye bye.